Okay, with the Matt Gallagher, Green Rush is the feature film. We performed the screenplay. It was winning screenplay at our festival. Really interesting script. It's I guess timely, and it's about out of work actors who plan in LA, Los Angeles, who plan a robbery of a marijuana dispensary in the middle of the COVID lockdown. Did this happen in real life? Is this where you got the idea?
No, no. I did borrow some components of the scheme from a real life robbery that happened in Germany. I got it from a heist podcast. But no, nothing with actors during COVID of a dispensary that I'm aware
All right, so basically, reading between the lines, you got an idea from a podcast you listened to. You kind of took the plot points of what happened in Germany, and then you're like, oh, why don't we make it, out of work actors? COVID, they're basically they're people like them. There's a human attachment to them, and
of.
plus, it's COVID. People are desperate, I guess, right? And why not marijuana, right?
Well, the original the idea came during COVID. I was walking the empty streets of Denver at the time, and I was just saying somebody should set a movie during this time. Everybody's going to remember 5 years, 10 years from now. Remember when everything was locked down? But I
Yeah.
didn't know what kind of movie to write. Then later, I was talking to somebody from Sundance actually about the next movie I wanted to write. She said, "Well, what movie would you want to watch?" And I said, "A heist movie." And I connected those two. So then I was like, "Okay, heist movie during COVID. You get to, you can wear the masks, you can wear wraparound shades." Uniquely, like no other time in history could you roll into town with masks on and not look like a crazy person or like a suspect. So that's where I got the idea to do a heist film. I was doing some work adjacent to the marijuana business, which gave me some of the background for, growers and manufacturers, et cetera. So I had some detail there. And then, like I said, then once I said, okay, I'm gonna do a heist movie, I took a key part of the scheme from this podcast called the Heist Podcast. And it was a scheme that came out of one of the German speaking countries. They translated a newspaper article from Germany. So anyway, there might be more detail than you wanted.
Okay, so thematically, the film's about basically the American economy and basically this generation kind of feeling, lost, or basically they don't have faith in the system, quote unquote, which is a common kind of, it's a common thing that's occurring now. Like, we're doing this podcast in 2024. There's a huge election coming, gigantic, from a Canadian
Yeah,
perspective, coming up,
yeah.
and there's this that there's this the younger audience are skewing, they're changing their votes, they're changing their ideals, because they have no faith in the administration now. They have no faith in anything, because they go to the grocery store and everything's a dollar more, and they don't have as much money.
Yeah, I mean, this really is a story about young men, right?
Yeah, that's
Young
what I mean.
men
It's like the younger generation
yeah.
who I grew up, and I kind of, like, as a white male, quote unquote, like, I kind of had like a good idea that I can be successful. I had that confidence, and perhaps
Yeah,
this
they're
generation doesn't, right?
yeah, they're failing to attach. The college doesn't look like the great return on money that it used to be. They can't afford to buy a house. There's not as much opportunity they perceive. They don't trust institutions. They don't trust education. They don't trust the politicians. They don't trust the media. So, what do you have then? You kind of have a couple of Rogan bros that like listen to podcasts. They're into conspiracy theories, and they're a little more desperate financially. That is like Kindle or kindling that can lead to something explosive. So that's what creates somebody who might do something crazy like this.
And because you have nothing to lose, right?
That in their minds, yeah,
Yeah.
they're bartending and trying to make it rich in showbiz, but they're not getting there. COVID shuts that down for them at the beginning of the movie. The bar they're working at shuts down. There goes their money. Sure, they get a check from the government, but that doesn't last long out in LA. The studios are shut down. One's a model actor and one is a comedian actor. The comedy club shut down, so the dreams are on pause, and they have six figures in debt from college that they didn't finish. It's not a good financial situation.
And this is the common thread, right? Like, of like what people go through. So
Yeah, I mean, right now, college is two-thirds women. It's women and females are doing great relative to their male peers. It's male peers that are young males that are really failing to connect with society right now.
all that said, it's you want to be funny, right? Like you want
Yeah,
it to be,
good.
right?
No, I haven't said a single funny thing yet. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you have a drug backdrop, it gives you an opportunity for that. There's the LA backdrop, LA can be a little bit of a shallow town. One guy's ex-girlfriend is, what you might call a yacht girl. She's, posting thirst traps on Instagram and getting invited to parties. It's all a little shady. They're gonna, swing for the fences here. So yeah, hopefully the dialogue is where the humor comes from. But I did want to have characters where people would say, you know what, I could see these guys doing something crazy and stupid like this.
Yeah, because like I said, you have nothing to lose and you feel like in your, when you're young in your 20s, you're not that bright. Let's be honest here, right? So
Yeah, I
and
wasn't.
and to all the people who are listening are like, yeah, okay, boomer. But I mean, what I'm trying to say is that your emotional intelligence isn't there yet. Like it's like you can't see the big picture. And I'm being general, of course, but I'm saying that there's a lack of like you're kind of living in the moment. You're living day by day. You can't see the macro of like what can happen in your life. So you're going to react. You're more entitled to react to something than basically think back and kind of assess the situation. I'm just being
Yeah, and
that generation. Yeah.
yeah, and social media, TikTok, Instagram, etc., has FOMO, off the charts for young people.
Yeah.
They're constantly looking at people that are doing things they want to do, looking better than them, etc. So there's much more focus on what you don't have than what you do have.
Okay, so like I said, but every like the film tone wise is a comedy. It's sort of like you want like say Ocean's 11 is more of a more heist crime than comedy. It's got comedic elements, it's funny, it's entertaining, but then it's like but I think in this script you want to lean more on the funny and then the heist is the second genre. Would that make sense to you?
Yeah, I would say it's kind of like True Romance mixed with Pineapple Express, right? So,
So
but
Pineapple Express is a full-fledged comedy. True Romance
yeah,
is an action kind of
more of an action.
crime. Yeah,
Yeah, and
yeah,
yeah, no, unlike Pineapple Express, these are not stoners. They don't, they do drugs. There are scenes where they do drugs, but they're not druggies. They're not high all the time, or it's not a slapstick comedy. But it's also not True Romance in that I don't have a Sicilian scene or some high-end mobsters that are involved at all. But it should be fun. The idea is that this should be a fun
yeah,
movie with some fun titles.
exactly. Yeah, like where they're like it's like Ocean's 11. Like it's like that
Yes.
they're gonna be okay.
Ocean's 11 on a fraction of the budget. Yeah,
Yeah,
this is not, as they say in the movie, it's not a CIA level operation at all. These are, there's one person there that's got a decent six-figure job that's financing this. They're getting a couple burner phones,
yeah.
some movie props, some masks, and they're heading across state lines and going to try to pull this thing off.
So yeah, so you're kind of you're which is there's yeah you're kind of jumping on the youthful male kind of like bumbling kind of reacting to trying to get away with something that they shouldn't get away with, right? And
Yeah.
that said,
Yeah.
just from a high standpoint, marijuana, like these companies, it's still a cash business, isn't it?
Yeah, so marijuana is federally decriminalized, right?
Yeah.
But I'm sorry, state by state business, it's decriminalized, but federally, it's still not totally legal. So that means that the banks won't work with them. So if you go to a dispensary in California or in Colorado, for example, there's usually an ATM there. And you got to go use your card at the ATM, get cash, and then use the cash to buy the marijuana. So it makes it this cash business, which makes it a target for robberies.
So these banks are making money no matter what, right? Because they're taking interest on the ATM machine when people are taking money out, right?
Yeah, they're just not. I'm not sure exactly what the loophole is, but I do know that they've got Brinks trucks coming every day, and I'm sure they're depositing the cash.
Yeah,
But yeah, they're not gonna process any kind of credit card payments there. And I guess for whatever reason that gives them the legal distance.
which is kind of funny, right? But it's like, yeah, so everybody's making money, right? So like that's
Yeah.
basically what we're here learning here, right?
Well, yeah, and the title green rush is the term that Wall Street and private equity uses for investments in marijuana businesses, right? Instead of a gold rush, it's the green rush.
Yeah, and obviously it's going up, right? Like in terms of
Yeah.
yeah, the
Yeah,
business.
I think more states than not now have marijuana decriminalized, and some even, have harder drugs like mushrooms and ketamine. But we don't get into that in this movie.
Well, I'm not saying that this happens, but basically, like it's like a casino is the cash business. Sometimes things get, lost. Some money gets lost along the way. Let's just put it that way, I guess, right?
Oh, sure. And they're going to have a safe and et cetera, which makes it a good target. I mean, and also they don't have the security infrastructure in general that a bank does. Banks are incredibly difficult to rob. The marijuana industry is less involved, which again makes it a good target.
Yeah, like nobody's robbing banks these days, right? Like it's almost an impossible task. So
I
basically,
actually
what we're
don't.
saying is that if we want to rob something, we should rob marijuana dispensary is a good place to rob, I guess.
This is not a how-to guide, nor do
Yeah.
I give legal advice.
Yeah, totally. Well, yeah, because it's the suspense of the disbelief, right? So the
Yeah.
characters in the movie, like you said, the one guy's a comedy actor, the other one's a model. Are these people that or just like are they versions of like yourself or versions of just curious how you kind of pinpointed these certain characters in your script?
Well,
They're
people
very
may not be able to
developed.
tell.
They have a certain they all have their own personality.
Yeah, yeah. Certainly, I have no background in modeling, but I was a stand-up comedian before,
Okay.
so I do know that stand-up trying to break into showbiz role. The male model piece is much more invented, but they're both. I've done the going to auditions and trying to crack into TV shows, so I have some experience from my dumb 20s,
Yeah.
where I was trying to do all that. So I did pull from that, and I do have some friends that live in Hollywood. So I have a little bit of a feel for the market and the town out there.
And so, yeah, generally the male model comedian doesn't overlap, I guess, right? Not to be down on the
I would say
comedians, they
never.
just don't have like sometimes if you're very handsome, usually you're not a good stand-up comedian. I don't know why that it just doesn't work out that way.
Yeah, you don't see too many prom kings that try their hands at stand up. Just you don't need the skill,
I'm
right?
just trying to think of an example on top of my head of like both female or male, like not to be down on anybody, but basically like from a vanity perspective, who could basically model.
Yeah. I think even if you get a reasonably good-looking comedian of either gender, they stand out like crazy.
Yeah. Like I think
But
Dane Cook. I guess Dane Cook. I guess he was handsome and he was funny. I guess right. He had a good
yeah,
profile.
he had leading man looks with
Yeah.
the right lighting for a while there. But again, that made him extremely rare. And you also don't see too many male models trying or female models trying their hands at stand up. So yeah, just two very different skills, which I think makes them good foils for each other.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. There's a certain contradiction there, but they can still
Yeah.
be friends, right? So okay. So tell me. So basically, tell me about the process of writing the script. Like, do you have like a routine? Do you have like do you have to write a certain day? Like, or or you just get inspired and you just kind of like write?
Yeah, to me, it starts with the concept. Like it has to sound like something I'd want to watch. I really only have two projects I think are really good, but it's where I feel like, okay, this is a great idea. Then I want to map out the broad plot. And there was a UCLA professor, I should get the name for you, but he mapped out like the archetype of a good screenplay. And it's where you want to have, your point of no return is 50% of the way through. You want to have a late setback 75% of the way through. You want to have your conclusion at 90%. You have the final 10% to wrap everything up. I found once I moved my scripts to that model, they moved a lot faster. So then I've got a plot line. And then one thing that I've learned over time, like if you're going to get any kind of movie made and want people to be interested, you really need interesting characters. So over time, I'm spending more and more time trying to flesh out those characters, and not just your main one or two. You want to have some depth and some contradictions, and actors love playing a character that has a secret. So you want to have that for all of your main roles.
Gotcha. And then how's it going? How's the screenwriting going like for you? Like you said, you did some stand up. I'm gonna get to your sales career in a second because you kind of stood out in the blog interview. But tell me about your are you be like you want to get it in the screenwriting game? That's your kind of goal?
So I like when I did stand up, I had a day job, right? I want to be in a position where I can help my mother, especially when she's now retired. So it's hard to just swing for the fences, go all in screenwriting. If I got some momentum there, got a few things made, and they did well, maybe I would switch over. But for now, I'm going to have a day job. Same thing I did with stand up. So I did stand up a little bit as a teenager, but went really hard in my 20s. For about 6 years, I was in some festivals. You know, I got to meet Carlin, I got to meet Dave Attell, I got to meet a handful of guys and did shows with them. I had a crew of guys that we did college shows with. One of the
Yeah.
guys I toured with, you know, now he just played the Garden last night. So, you know, it's great to see him make it. And then I went, you know, buckled back down to school, and now I help sales teams. So I work within the private equity world, but I'm like a repairman for sales teams. If sales are off, I go in and I, you know, check and make sure it's the comp plan right. Do we have the right sellers? Do we have the right pitch? Do they know the
Yeah.
right skills, etc. That's what I do. And then screenwriting's on the side. But I mean, I would love to. My goal is I just would love to get something made. I think
Gotcha.
would
And
be.
like it seems like it's an itch you can't scratch the entertainment business. It's like you got to establish career. You dabbled in it, you had some success, but then you still can't leave it totally, I guess, right? You still want to feel you still want to like you still like this business in a sense.
Yeah, I mean, I just love creating. I still do a charity stand-up show like every 4 years. I'll get up and do about a new 15 minutes. But yeah,
You have
I had
15
this
minutes
idea.
now? Like you have, like I say, next week I'm gonna book you. You have 15 minutes?
I think I would, to do well, I would need, I think, 3 weeks to really tighten it up. But, you know, during COVID, a lot of it, I was going to do a show right when COVID hit. So I've got something that's mostly right. But yeah, it'll take me about 3 weeks to get in shape.
3 weeks to get in shape? That's pretty good. That's impressive. Like people don't understand. That's like 15 minutes is of solid stand-up is impressive. That's hard. And you like, you're gonna fine tune it on stage, but that's good. And so you like by the way, you kind of threw out some names there. How was Carlin meeting Carlin? I'm
I mean,
curious. He's probably my favorite all-time stand-up.
yeah, I mean, it was incredibly fortunate, and he was a really cool guy. So it was the Boston Comedy Festival. I want to say it was 2003 or 2004. I'm dating myself a little bit. I was still very new, and I was the selection out of New York to go compete. I did not win the festival. They are kind of like a tournament, and I met Gallagher, same last name as me, the guy who smashes watermelons. So I met him the first day I was there, and then I got to talk to Carlin. I didn't get to have him see me do stand up, but he gave me real practical advice and just seemed like the nicest person imaginable. And you could just tell he loved the craft and loved meeting new young comics. So
What was the advice?
the thing that I took away the most was he said it wasn't what you would expect Carlin to say to you, but he said the look has to match the act. He's like, you can't get up on stage as like a 300-pound guy and talk about how great of a ladies' man you are. The crowd's gonna have this disconnect. Like, what is he joking? Is he for real? So if you're gonna be a wise ass, like look like a wise ass. If you're gonna be like the super nice guy, like look like the super nice guy. So I remember he said, you know, like what do I look like to you? He said, you come across like a wise ass. You should lean into it. Okay. So I was being a little too nice on stage before that. So my onstage persona became a little more edgy after that.
That makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense because they see it's all about the emotion, right? Like they see the individual and they'll emotionally connect to them. And if it's something doesn't feel real on a vanity standpoint, on whatever, yeah, they'll just, even though it could be the funniest thing in the world, but the audience will disconnect, I guess, right?
Well, the whole thing is that the audience only has so much mental bandwidth, right? So you get up there and, you know, now if you're famous, like you're Chris Rock, they already know who he is. They
Yeah.
know his shtick, as you might say, that like, and they're ready for it. They're ready for the rhythm and everything. If you're who I was, like you're getting up there, the crowd's figuring out who you are. So if there's this disconnect between your look and your act, like it makes it harder for the brain
Yeah.
to connect. This
100%.
whole idea is like, make it easy. If it's an action film, the front of the movie, the movie poster should show some action. If it's porn, there should be somebody naked on there, right? Like make it easy. You know, the book should match the cover, right? So that was one thing I took away. Just it was very practical, and also he said I was pacing the stage too much. I think that I was imitating Chris Rock. So you know, it's another thing. It's making the audience's mind work. He's like,
Yeah.
stand still, like use the mic stand as like an anchor, and then just deliver, and they're going to focus on what you say as opposed to watching you walk.
That's interesting. That's an interesting point because Chris Rock, he he's moving because it's like he's making societal kind of comments, right? Like it's like it's funny, of course, but it's all about like what's happening in the world, right? Like it's always a social commentary, right? So there's an extra layer to the joke. I mean, that's why I guess why he's walking. I never thought of it like that, but it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think he's the greatest stand-up of all time,
Yeah.
Chris, in my opinion, Chris. So, it works for him. But I think if you watch his early stuff, where when he had still the flat top and, wasn't on SNL yet, he is standing still and delivering. The pacing came later. And I think once you created a brand for yourself and everything,
Yeah.
like the audience is ready to go with you. But if you're an unknown doing that, you're making one more thing that the audience is thinking about besides your material.
Yeah, that makes yeah. Well, in these small comedy shows, they don't have a huge stage that you can walk on anyways, right?
Yeah,
you're kind of planted in one little area too, right? So when you're working
yeah.
on when you're doing like stadium shows, you got a lot more room to walk, I guess, right?
I never got there, but again, yeah, my buddy, shouts to
Yeah.
Julian McCullough. He was in the Boston Garden this week, so he did get there. The biggest we got was University of Pittsburgh. We played a crowd of like 300, which was pretty awesome. I was very happy.
That's
But
listen, man. You're in the 1%, so nothing to sneeze at, right? Like listen, it's all about the luck and opportunity and obsessiveness too, right? Like you gotta success sometimes is dysfunctional, right? So
I
not healthy. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, clearly, I don't have a problem taking a shot at long shot things, right? Screenwriting is super hard to get movies made. It's like
Yeah.
trying to put a man on the moon or like trying to launch a pharma product or whatever you want to say. Stand up was always a long shot. I always knew it, and so I gave myself a certain period of time, and I was like, all right, then I got to go. I got to go dedicate myself to a real job, make sure that I can, take care of those that I love.
All right. One last thing I want to bring up with you because it seems like we're in the same generation, same age. We asked you in the blog interview your favorite song. You mentioned your song, but you also said you listened to the Nirvana's Nevermind album the most. So it kind of tells you you're from a certain generation,
Yeah,
Generation
dates me.
X, like myself. And then you said that True Romance is the movie you saw the most times in your life, which
Yeah,
was I had the VHS
yeah.
back in the day. I actually just watched it again for the first time because a friend of mine he basically showed me the film and I said, I haven't watched this film in 25 years. He goes, watch it. It's like just like a month ago. He goes, watch it. It holds up. It's
Oh my
still a
God.
great film. And it does, it still holds up.
Yeah, I mean, it's that dialogue is amazing. Do you know the story about how that got made? Yeah, because Tarantino was an unknown.
Yeah.
So Tarantino he was kind of semi-famous in a very culty
Yeah, this
way
is
in Hollywood.
before Pulp Fiction, before Reservoir Dogs, right? Yeah.
Yeah, he was a video store clerk. They said you could go in, you could ask him any question, and you couldn't stump him about movies because he a little spectrumy with his movie knowledge.
Yeah.
And he somehow got himself onto the set of Last Boy Scout, and he was talking a big game there, and Tony Scott overheard him. And he bragged to Tony Scott. He said, "If you read one scene from one of my movies, you'll beg me to make it." And they're drinking and talking shit. And Tony Scott
Is
said,
that
"Okay."
story even true? I don't buy it. But basically it could be wrong, but
I mean, he kind of came out of nowhere and got Tony Scott to make one of his movies and finance another one.
yeah.
I mean, maybe it's a little apocryphal, but I have heard him say it. I certainly wasn't there,
Yeah.
but yeah, it was the Sicilian scene from True Romance, and then and Tony Scott said, "This is your movie." He said, "I've got two movies." He said, "I want to make them both." And apparently Tarantino said, "You can direct one, but then you have to produce me directing the other one." And he said, "Well, I want this one." So that's how it all happened. Again, according to legend.
Because so he had Reservoir Dogs, Natural Born Killers, and True Romance. He sold it within like 6 months, right? And Oliver Stone did True of Natural Born Killers, and then he directed Reservoir Dogs, and then Tony Scott did True Romance. So
Yeah.
he was getting the feelers, he was getting the vibe, right? Because he had these unique scripts, right? They're all ripoffs of like different films, but like to put them all together, he there's a good cohesive story there, right? That's his trademark, right? So
Certainly his directing style is like a pastiche of a lot of different styles. I
yeah,
think he's unapologetic about that. And I know Pulp Fiction was really the way I heard him describe it is just three different cliche movie types from the 30s
yeah.
that just went away. So like the boxer throwing the fight, what was it? The boxer throwing the fight, the gangster taking out the boss's girl, and there was a third one.
The
And he
shooting the the kid in the covering up, the
Yeah,
yeah,
got it. Cover
yeah,
up the body. And yeah, and he just wove those together. So that's how that one got made. I don't the True Romance, I think, is a fairly unique I don't know of another one like that. Again, and my favorite thing is just there's so many tiny roles that have incredible dialogue and you get incredible performances out of.
yeah.
That's what I think really separates that movie.
Well, Tony Scott modernized it, right? Like
Yeah.
he made it like because because the way with the original script, it was like he was kind of like he's talking about like the old karate movies, right? And it kind of had that kind of tone and vibe to it. And then he kind of Tony Scott made it the 90s, right? Like it's a full-fledged 90s movie, right? So like,
Oh yeah.
yeah. So yeah, so
Yeah.
you
And it's
got
just
Christian Slater, and then you have like, yeah, Gain Defini before Sopranos, right? Like that
yeah,
fight
I mean,
scene, yeah, with Patricia Arquette, that's pretty violent. It's pretty intense. I was kind of
and the
blown away
dialogue
with it.
before it starts is intense. He starts talking about what it's like killing somebody, like
Yeah,
how he grew cold to it over time. Like that's incredible dialogue. I mean, Gary Oldman is the pimp. You have all these the Hopper and Pitt. You have all these incredible actors that come in for like one scene, and they're like a closer in baseball throwing 105-mile-an-hour heat, and then
yeah.
the next set it's another one coming in throwing heat. It's just I've just never seen a movie with that many intense short performances. So that's what makes it really unique to me. And it's
And
a crime.
you gotta listen, you didn't put it in the blog interview, but Bronson Pinchot, Belky from Perfect
Yes,
Strangers,
yes,
he's genius in that film.
yeah,
Where
yes,
like
yes.
I wonder what that like what happened to that guy's career. He was so good in this movie. He was fantastic.
Yeah, my favorite scene with him is when it's Chris Penn and Sizemore are the two cops working him
Yeah.
over after they find him with the bag of coke.
Elliot, right? He was Elliot, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Elliot Blitzer.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yes,
fantastic. No, and then of course it's the Western, good, bad, and the ugly standoff in the end, right? So basically
Mexican standoff. Yeah,
the three stacks, the three, yeah, and then basically then you got the love story, right, between Slater and Arquette. It's yeah,
yeah,
the movie. I don't think many people like it. Didn't like take the they didn't cross the next generation where some films do, but you know what I mean, right? Like it didn't like catch the world by storm, but it's yeah, it's a pretty fantastic film. I think it's violent. It's very violent, and it's a little bit racist in 2024 eyes, but it's still a fantastic film.
yeah. The dialogue's a little edgy. A lot of Tarantino stuff was very edgy. He has
Yeah,
the white guys dropping the N bomb, right? Which you just I'm not. I don't recommend it. I don't do it in my movies.
yeah. But
Unless it's gonna be like a
even like
homeless
the
schizophrenic.
Sicilian, the Sicilian scene is, it's kind of cringeworthy. It's great, but it's a little cringeworthy now, right? So yeah,
Yeah, it's intense. It's intense.
yeah.
Supposedly Tarantino had a black adoptive father who told him that, and that's where he got it from. But I don't know if that's apocryphal or not.
Well, I appreciate your time. I think that is a fantastic script. It really is. It's like it's in the plot wise, from a plot standpoint, from a tone standpoint, and it is funny. You're a very funny guy. So
Thank you. I appreciate that.
so the to basically, that another 90s movie, Goodfellas, right? So basically I just kind of said that subconsciously. So basically, yeah, so fantastic script. I think it could do very well. I'm sure it's doing well now, like on the festival circuit. And I wish you the ultimate best of success.
I appreciate you taking the time to chat with me. I appreciate the recognition from the festival. Can't wait to hear the podcast. Thank you so much.
All right, man. Let's talk soon. Let's talk when you win your
Uh,
next script.
you got it. Take care.